Hey, it's Nikki, and this is the best tool for training guides on conflict. Often, one of the biggest stressors for guides are around conflict. So, unhappy guests, belligerent locals, an angry vendor, etc. And while these are situations that thankfully don't come up too often for the average guide, the lingering thought that it might happen can give even the most experienced guide a bit of anxiety. So, usually, I'll suggest a role playing activity. And when I suggest that, both guides and managers tend to make a face. And I think there's this connotation of role playing that it's an embarrassing and awkward exercise a corporate office might put their employees through. But the unease that comes from the unknown can be solved with muscle memory, which comes from practice, which can be expedited with role playing. So, in this article, I'll explain why role playing is my favorite tool for combating conflict and break down what exactly that training could look like. So, why role playing helps guides prepare for conflict. As mentioned, conflict doesn't really come up that often for a tour guide, not serious conflict. So, it's not something they can practice on a regular basis. And when you're under conflict, there are a lot of things to consider at once, right? There's obviously something that needs your immediate attention, but while you're trying to decide the best way to diffuse the situation, you're also aware of your other guests who are waiting and watching to see how you'll react. And perhaps then you're also aware of the fact that you've never been in this exact situation, right? So a very human reaction to all this pressure is to freeze, right? Or go into fight or flight, which is where your instincts take over. What role playing teaches is that instinct. So, role playing allows for you to be put in the worst case scenario. So, should that scenario actually pop up on a tour, you've been here before. And you can allow your body to go onto autopilot using the techniques and wording that you've practiced during that role playing training. So, how to facilitate role playing training? It can be used to train guides on any uncomfortable situation that doesn't often come up, right? So one big one right now is a guest refusing to wear a mask. Another one that comes up more often than you'd think is an intoxicated local who interrupts your tour and wants your guest's attention. It's happened to me a few times. And then, of course, the classic, a guest who is giving unwanted attention to a guide or a guest. Now we're going to the sexual harassment area. All of these are uncomfortable situations with conflict, right? So here's a general outline of how I would run a training for any of these scenarios. First, I'd share with the guides the company policy on this particular scenario. For example, do they have the power to kick a bully off the tour? How will management support them? What does that actually look like, right? I would also then have guides brainstorm different versions of this scenario. So either things that have happened to them or what they fear might happen, right? Just out loud in the group. Then I would have guides brainstorm ways to diffuse the situation. So the trainer should, of course, have examples already prepared in case the guides need some help to start off. But this is an important part of the training as there are always options about how to handle a situation. And each guide has a different personality and comfort level. So giving them several options allows them to try those out. Then, of course, simulate the situation. So as cheesy as it might sound at first, guides actually love playing the angry guest, right? You pair guides into groups of 3, one guest, one guide, and one observer to make suggestions, and have them practice different ways to address the same situation again and again. You can have them change groups or, pull out a new guest personality if you want to change things up. But the idea is repetition. And finally, I always like to finish by having guides share what they think they will use. So you come back as a group and have guides share out loud which techniques they liked the best. This will give your guides confidence in their ability to handle conflict on their tours and prepare them to handle these situations smoothly, should they occur. Bonus, this exercise also works for practicing things in general that make guides uneasy, such as asking for reviews or selling tours. You follow the same process and just have them practice. The more they practice, the more muscle memory it becomes, the easier it becomes.